Ben Adams is a musician and entrepreneur from Utah who's very much involved in the local music scene. He's currently in the EDM and dance band Southernmost Gravy, and he's played with the Johns and Backspun previously and managed national tours and artists. Now, he's recently launched a show called The Ben Adams Show, which features all types of musicians, including Freddie Dredd, The Rare Occasions, and Hotel Mira, and many more. And Ben joins us now. Good afternoon, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, in your show, The Ben Adams Show, it's all about speaking to a variety of artists, right?
Yeah.
So what gave you the idea to set up the show?
So as a musician myself and stuff, I just wanted to get like the different kind of like inside scoop of like what other like musicians kind of like how their thoughts go and stuff, you know? So not just me. I want to see like what others think about like these different like music things too at the same time, you know? Just to kind of like see how their views might be different than like others, and just like interviewing different people in different genres. It's cool to kind of get all of those different like perspectives and stuff, you know? That makes sense.
And do you think that as a musician yourself, you have quite a good insight and can ask good questions to these musicians that maybe somebody else wouldn't?
In a few ways, yeah. Like when I interview genres that I know a lot about, like the indie rock genre, the dance genre, that's easy. But when it comes to like different genres, like maybe metal or like rap, that can get a little bit harder just because I'm not as experienced in those genres, and that stuff. But it's still like it's easy in some ways, but then at the same time with those genres, it's a little bit harder to come up with like questions just because sometimes it can kind of get repetitive, especially with those genres and stuff, I feel.
Yeah. This is an impossible question, but who would you say have been your favourite people to interview?
My favorite people have been some of the touring acts I've gotten to talk to lately. Probably my favorite one was a rapper called Freddie Dredd. He opened for Young Gravy in November of last year. I got to talk to him for a little, and he was just like he's gotten pretty big recently. He's gone like viral on TikTok too. And he was like just the chillest guy I've met. And he was just like so like nice and so welcoming. And yeah, he's definitely been my favorite interview that I've done. Yeah, I think that would be the top interview. It's been my favorite.
And having watched some of your interviews, you are very talented because it doesn't feel like an interview. It feels like a relaxed conversation. Is that a deliberate thing?
I think so. Yeah, I try to have most of my interviews be like super relaxed, super just like friendly and stuff. Like, cause I feel like if you're doing like a pretty direct interview, it can kind of get boring, and it can kind of just get like, yeah, it can kind of get boring if you're doing more of a direct interview. That's why, like, for my interviews, I just kind of have to have it pretty chill, relax, kind of just let it take its own way, have its own flow and stuff. If that makes sense.
Do you mean like boring for the audience or the guest or both?
I would say both. Yeah, there's been some interviews where like the person I'm interviewing, they can kind of get like a little bit sidetracked, and then the interview kind of starts to get boring. So I kind of just like have it take its own flow, not really have questions like too prepared. Just so like, you know, just kind of have it take its own way. That's how I like doing it.
Yeah, because I suppose if you don't prepare many questions, it will flow naturally. Because sometimes, you know, as an interviewer myself, you can prepare loads of questions and you find that you're relying on them too much and the interview loses all flow. So it's kind of important that if you are going to prepare some, make it just some.
No, yeah, that exactly. That's what I've been trying to do with the past episodes, especially just so, because it helps with like just attention for the audience, and it just makes it more just like wholesome and stuff for the interview and all.
And because it's a visual medium as well, and that you're in the same room together, I notice you don't have any kind of cue cards or anything, so it is all off the top of your head, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all on top of my head, which is it can get sometimes hard to like if the interview is going like super fast, you know, and the person you're interviewing isn't giving you much like answers or like not specific answers. It can kind of like get fast, which sometimes gets me like kind of lost in my thoughts. So sometimes like without any cards or like prompt cards, it can kind of get hard just like to figure out what you're gonna ask next. But most of the times it goes pretty smoothly, and yeah.
Because sometimes you get guests that give very short answers, and in my experience, it's easier to interview a group of people because if you've got Mr. Monosyllabic, somebody else in the band will like to talk a lot. Is that the same in your experience?
That's the exact same in my experience. There's been For me, it's mostly like the rap like collectives that I talk to. Since like those they bring in like six, seven people per like group that I do. They like those go by so like smooth and like they're just more fun. Just because like it's all these people talking, and everyone has their own thoughts. And like those interviews, although I don't get to ask too many questions just because of how like many people are there, it's still like just so much more fun than like interviewing just like a solo person.
Yeah. Is it hard sometimes when you have a big group of people that are kind of doing a lot of the talking? Is it hard to control the interview still, if you like?
No, yeah, definitely. It's definitely hard to control with like a large group of people because sometimes I want to move on to like the next question, but it's like kind of weird to like just like stop them from talking about what they're talking about. So
Yeah.
usually I just like let them finish like the whatever they're talking about and then move on. But it's definitely a little bit more hard to control or like keep in a solid path and not like go on a lot of tangents. But
Yeah.
overall, it's still more fun than doing just a solo person.
Do you have any time limits, or do you just like to do it for as long as it lasts?
For solo people, I usually try to max out at 20 or 25 minutes. For bigger groups, 30 minutes max.
Mm.
I don't want to go over 30 minutes just because I feel like then it would get a little bit boring, like
Yeah.
for like the audience member and then even like the guest I'm doing. Maybe if it's like a bigger group, then I might like consider going like 40 minutes, but like that still probably be like probably too long for me. But yeah, I max for any interview I do is 30 minutes. For sure. I don't want to go any longer. And then like for touring acts and like acts that come to town from out of state, I usually just keep those at like 15 to 20 minutes max, just because I don't want to like waste the time and
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, that's those are my limits for anything I do
Yeah, that's
for
the thing.
interviews.
Where are you doing these interviews as well? Is this at your own studio? Because I noticed in one of them I watched, you could hear some rehearsing in the background. So is that like backstage at a gig or somewhere where there is just noise?
The show is mostly produced like in my basement. We have like a little like music studio in my basement. So whenever I can, I like having just the guests that I have come over to my house and then we just record it down there. But other times if it's like a bigger act that's like out of state or whatever, then I usually just go to the venue to make it easy on them and stuff.
Yeah.
Which is the case for most of my interviews. So that's like where you hear like concerts going on in the background because it's literally like backstage at a concert. Those interviews are at least. So yeah, it varies just like venues, and then most of the time though it's just at my in my basement and stuff at my little studio.
And it's very well recorded for somewhere that would be on location. Because I think a lot of the time, if somewhere's on location, people will bring basic equipment. But you've got the whole stuff all wired up, and it sounds probably exactly how it would sound if you were in a studio together.
Yeah, it's fun. I like doing. I've done like interviews in the, like a few years ago, and I didn't have. I only filmed it on my phone and stuff, and those didn't do as well. So like starting this back up, like last November when I started like doing interviews again, I like decided to actually like make it like look good. So like I at all the interviews I do, I have like a filmer that films for me, and then I bring my camera. I mean I bring my computer with like all my audio setup and stuff, my mics, and yeah, I just want to make it look the best that it can be with anything I do.
Yeah. This show is a great platform for musicians, and as a musician yourself, does it annoy you that you wouldn't be able to be on the show as a guest because you're the host?
Yeah, I've thought about that. I'm in a band, and I've wanted to have my band on the show, but I don't know exactly how I'll do that since I'm in the band too, which is kind of annoying. I've thought about having like doing like a surprise co-host or something that would like take my place as the interviewer just for that episode, which I think would be
Yeah.
fun. It kind of annoys me that I can't be on my own show, that I have to be like always the interviewer. But I want to do something where like I have just a special guest take my place just for an episode just so I
Yeah.
can like do an interview myself like with my band and stuff, which I
Yeah.
think would be awesome.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I guess the only other alternative is you interviewing the rest of your band, but you still don't get to be a guest. So maybe the surprise guest co-host is a good idea.
Yeah. I have a few ideas in my mind who
Yeah.
I want, but yeah, it'd be cool.
So what's coming up in terms of this show? Who's going to be the next guest? And have you got any more exciting things coming up as well, either on the show or outside of it?
On the show mainly it's the February and March are pretty busy with interviews and stuff, which I'm excited for. I think the next like interview I'm super excited for is this is this like indie solo artist called Steven Sanchez. He has a song that's like been viral on TikTok recently. He's coming up. I'm interviewing him in March, which I think that's like probably the next interview I'm most excited to do because
Yeah.
that'll be a fun one. But yeah, as far as that, just interviews each week and stuff was I don't know. But yeah, interviews each week and then nothing too crazy coming up, just that stuff. Yeah.
Well, in the meantime, where can we watch the Ben Adams Show and follow you on all the socials?
Yeah, so our username on AV Social is just at Ben Adams Show. We're on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, pretty much any social media that you can think of, we're on. And yeah, just at Ben Adams Show on AV Social platform.
Excellent. Well, many thanks for talking to us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me so much.